Hey everybody, thank you very much for joining me. Let's not waste any other time. Let's just jump right into the topic of this video, which is about human goals and the drive for success in moving forward in life. Now look, goals, whenever you talk about psychology, whenever you talk about even philosophy, the human psyche, this idea that you want to move towards something, this is not a new concept. This is something that's been around for God knows how long, since essentially the creation of human beings on this earth. And the question becomes, if we have something that is so necessary, that is so ingrained with a human being, or even with an animal, to move forward and to do something, why do we still have so many questions surrounding it? Or if we're aware of these internal desires, how can we better ourselves? How can we better those goals? Or how can we not chase goals that we know might not be the best for us? So the topic becomes, what are goals? Why do we go after them? Who sets goals? How do we decide what actions to engage in? There's a philosophical thought, and I talked about this earlier in one of my other videos, where it's, look, you go after your greatest desire. If your greatest desire is to lose weight, then you will eat a salad instead of going to McDonald's. If your greatest desire is that Big Mac sauce, then you're going to go to McDonald's instead, right? Here's what's interesting about goals. We constantly set them, right, in an attempt to move towards something. So you're here, and a goal is something that is not here, that you do not possess, that is not present. So it gives you motivation, it gives you a reason to move out and get that thing. Now, in a counselor's view, a goal is an extremely important thing. Why? Because it allows you to aim in a certain direction. You don't love where you are. Where you are is only temporary. The moment you begin to think like that, you're going to feel empowered. Why? Because otherwise, if you don't look forward, if you can't look, if you can't aim, if you don't have goals outside of this, what you see is all there is. And you feel like you're chained, you're shackled to your way of life. So the first thing that an individual does is go, well, look, describe to me your environment and describe to me where you'd like to go. What does it look like? What does your life look like? And how can we start heading there? Now, here's what's fascinating. If you've heard of the humanistic psychologist Abraham Maslow, he had this kind of hierarchy of needs. I'm sure people have heard about this now. Look, if I'm starving, right, and the number one thing I want to do is eat in order to survive, I'm not thinking about my self-esteem. I'm not thinking about relationships or, finding the passion that I find fulfilling. There's no time for that. I got to make sure I find a roof over my head, clean drinking water, some food. Then maybe I can find some relationships so they can ensure my survival. Not to mention reproduce and produce offspring. Right? So look, I was thinking about video games the other day. One of the most common genre of video games, and we see the same kind of archetype in movies all the time. It's the no-name that becomes into something. It's the nothing into something story, right? It's the kid that gets picked on in high school. He's kind of a nobody who becomes whatever, high school president, right? It's the no-name. It's the unlikely warrior or steward who turns into this great knight and defeats the dragon and all that jazz. And I was thinking about this, like, why is there such an interest in that? If you play video games, you're really going to love this example. Think about an RPG. An RPG for the non-video game is a role-playing game in which you play as an individual in a video game. Oftentimes you get to pick their character, maybe pick what they wear, pick their weapons, and they go out into the world doing, whatever, quests and whatnot. Here's what's interesting. Let me ask you this. If I'm playing a video game, follow me here, am I that character? Who is that character to me exactly? If you pick up a controller and you start playing a video game, in the beginning you kind of, maybe you give him his name, maybe you don't, but there's the starting class and you get to control him. Am I that character? And maybe that's an interesting question, right? Because you go, well, Daniel, you're not that character, you're you. But you're playing as that character. What if there's a part of me that's in him? What if there's something in him that resonates with me, which makes me want to play as this individual and have him get to great heights? Then what the heck does video games have to do with all this? Here's why. Video games essentially do the same thing as a story does. A well-told story where they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And generally, there's an upward trajectory for any hero in a movie. Think about Harry Potter, right? What he is and what he turns into at the end. And there are so many countless examples of these people who are maybe just mediocre or regular common folk. Or think of a Marvel superhero, and then they get their powers and they defeat a foe and they become this thing that's that's greater than they were. Think Lord of the Rings, the Strider, and how he turns to Aragorn and the whole, becoming a king and all that stuff. Now, the question becomes, why not just start at the top? Why not just start the movie with him being a king? Why not start the video game with you being a level 40 wizard going around blasting everybody to pieces? Because that gets boring really quickly. See, what we do as human beings is we keep aiming. And if we have aims, then we have goals, then we have a reason to move forward. The moment we reach that goal, it is in our most natural instinct to create another one and to create another one. Because guess what? The moment you get what you thought you wanted, it quickly dawns on you, this is not enough. And like most things in life, you become accustomed to it. If you're a person who's only lived at home, and that's all you know, then you get an apartment that's a single bedroom. It's not very good looking. It's not a great area, but it's your own apartment. It's your own place, your own dishes, your own furniture. You put up your own art, It's your own sleeping schedule. It's completely your own rules. That has a different sort of love to it. But what happens in a week? You become accustomed to it. And now you go, well, look, this is a nice, single bedroom apartment, but let me get something else. Let me renovate. Here's another goal. Okay, let me go to work. Let me get a promotion. Why? So I can have more money, so I can buy a nicer looking apartment. So that goal that we initially had that we reached, now we need another one. Why? Because the threshold for us has now increased. What used to make us happy here is not capable of making us happier or any more happy than we already are. So we must exceed our goal. So the question becomes, Daniel, are humans designed to set goals and never fully reach the end one? I'll tell you this. It's not so much that we don't meet the goal, but maybe it's about setting them and continuously meeting them over time, which makes us feel good. Maybe that's the fulfilling thing. If I hand a kid a controller to a video game where he's as leveled up as can be, as experienced as can be, he'll have fun for a minute, maybe 5, maybe an hour or 2. But then it's going to get stale. Why? Because that's all he knows. But if you give a kid a controller to a video game and he starts playing and his character is just this numbnut who just runs away from dragons, and then he watches this character gain XP and gain levels and progress until eventually he defeats the dragon, now there's a different level of fulfillment there, right? Because what you are able to do has drastically increased over time. Your abilities have increased, therefore what you can do has increased, therefore your identity changes over time. Why do kids love messing around with designs in video games? Why is it so cool when you get the next level of armor at the next level? Because it changes you. And the external change is a symbolic representation of the internal change. When you were a level 1, whatever, you were just the steward. When you're level 23, you are the dragon slayer. Like, you are a different person now. So let's relate this back, because I'm a big believer of pragmatism, practicality. How the heck does defeating dragons relate back to us? Whatever situation we're in life, there's always an upward trajectory. It could always get better. It could get worse too. But we'd like to think it gets better. We'd like to think so. That 5, 10, 15 years, I'm going to feel a little better. I'm going to be a little smarter. I'm going to be a little stronger. My social skills are going to be a little better. And this serves as motivation to move forward, to wake up in the morning, to know that my current circumstance is but mere temporary. And not only that, but we recognize that the person watching this video or listening to this on a podcast form in 2022 am not the same individual I was 3 years ago. I may have elements of that person and roots and certain ideas that are similar, but I've evolved in different ways. Certain beliefs I've completely abandoned, certain ones I've doubled down on, and I will not be the same person in 2027 that I am today. And when we do this, we can sit back and we can go, look, we can be a lot better than we are. We can, quote unquote, and again, video gamers are going to love this episode, we can level ourselves up over time. What does that mean? Level yourself up. First of all, why would you want to level up? In order to defeat the dragon in the video game, in order for the movie for Harry Potter to take on Voldemort, you need to be of a certain level, otherwise you're going to get smoked, right? Why? Because when you're a certain level, you've got better armor, better gear, you've got the abilities to take them on. So the question becomes, how do we get better? Well, we level up. What is leveling up in real life? That might mean increasing your value in such a way that it would directly impact your experience later on in life. Maybe leveling up could mean education. getting a degree, possibly, or an education in trades, which would directly improve your value. On a resume, you write, I have this experience. So then you can go to someone, they can give you a job. Now, not only do you have education, but now you have experience working at a job. So now when you go for your second job, you've got experience and education backing you up. You're making more money. With the more money, guess what? Life gets a little bit easier. Now you're not worried about paying for the bills. Maybe you buy yourself a nice place. Maybe you get yourself a dog. So one of the ways that we can level up is that we improve our skills. And for the gamers out there, if anyone ever played, there was a game called Sims, like years ago on PC. It was a big thing. And essentially, when you had a character, when you made them read a book, like their intelligence would increase. When you had them go on a treadmill, their strength would increase. And you could see your character leveling up. So what if every time you worked out, you were leveling up? And what if every time you read, you became smarter? And every time you went to a party and you talked to people, your social skills increased? How about every time you put an IKEA bed together and improved your problem solving? What I'm trying to get at is this. The reason why we have goals is because we recognize there's an upward trajectory. And we realize that an individual changes over time. And that the person who I am now cannot defeat the dragon. But in a couple years, I can be. So what can I do now to make myself the Dragon Slayer in the future? I am, let's say, whatever, 30-year-old guy who does not make enough money to leave his mom's basement. Okay? Am I in a position to start a family? That is my dragon. No, I'm not. Okay, so what do I need to do? What armor, what weapons, what skills do I need to be able to do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to need a job. Okay, what kind of a salary do I need to be able to have my own place at the very least? Can I get a decent salary without having an education? Well, I don't want to go to school for 4 years. How about a 2-year diploma? Maybe there's something in between there. Okay, maybe I can get a 2-year diploma and it's going to get me started and I can work part-time at the nearest retail store to kind of help me out. All right, maybe I can do that. And look, while I'm doing that, maybe I can start exercising a little bit. Why? To increase my strength? To make me literally feel better and put me in a better mood? So I can better interact with people, so I can feel more confident, so I can look more attractive to the sex that I'm attracted to? Right? And look, I talk about these kind of abstract ideas of leveling up and this, and it doesn't have to be so fantasy-like. Because a lot of things in a video game, folks, it's frightening how realistic they can be. When you play these video games, oftentimes, there are some people who will level up faster, or they'll have better armor or gear for whatever reason. There's people who pay with real money in video games to have perks. And it's very synonymous to real life. Whereas if you're born to a rich family, if, for example, you've just got a better hand in your deck, networking, you've got an uncle who works at this company who hires you like that. If you've got money, if you've got networking, things are going to come a little easier to you. And it's the same in video games. If you've got mom or dad's credit card, you can spend some money, you can level up faster, you can get to your goals faster. But regardless, the dragon is the dragon and you have to slay it, right? You don't look at anyone else's level. You don't look at where they are or how much they've played. You just judge yourself based on yourself and your experience, right? So you sit there and you go, what dragon do I have to slay? Okay, that one. Why? Why do I want to do this? Why? What happens after I slay this dragon? And generally what happens is we have a certain life that we want to strive towards. We have a certain, look, I'd like to live in a place where it doesn't have to be rich, but I don't want to have to worry about my bills. Okay, that's one. Look, I'm not the most attractive person, but I don't want to die alone. Like, I'd really like to be in a romantic relationship with someone, right? So that's the dragon that I have to slay. Like, okay, now we have a goal. We have a purpose. What do we need to do to slay that dragon? Does it mean working out? Does it mean getting a job, making some money, having my own place, buying my own car? What does that mean? So, if there's one thing that video games and movies tell us is, it's not, I want to just transport to the point where there is no dragon. Like, my friends, you're missing the point. It's about what happens to your identity when you start from where you are right now, let's say in a bad place, and over time you progress, and across the years you look in the mirror and you look at your emotional health, you look at your physical health, the fact that you got into a relationship, the fact that you got a promotion at work, and then you compare it to where you were. And that is all the meaning. If the light is all you know, how will you How will you appreciate it for what it is if you have never been touched by darkness? But if you've grown up in darkness, if you've been surrounded by darkness, if you've spent time there, when you see light for the first time, you're going to appreciate it differently. The last thing I want to say about courage and bravery when it comes to goals. I heard on the news somewhere, someone said, look, they use fearless and brave interchangeably. And I want to say, folks, that's wrong. That's incorrect. If you ever meet someone and they tell you, I am fearless, I have no fears, I'll do anything, and someone calls them brave, that is incorrect. If you're not afraid of something and you do it, you're not brave. Let's say I've got two friends. One of them's afraid to go off the diving board. One of them's not afraid to go off the diving board. The guy who's not afraid goes off the 10 meter. The guy who is afraid goes off the 5 meter. Who's brave? There's only one answer here. The guy who goes off the 5 meter. Why? Because you were afraid to do it and you did it anyways. If you don't have social anxiety and you are very confident and you speak to girls left and right, that's not brave. It's easy for you. But if there's a person who does have social anxiety and he finds it terrifying to talk to a person of the opposite sex, now you're brave. It's like, I'm not afraid of anything. Well, then how can you be brave? Being brave is facing that which scares you. There is no one without the other. So when you look at yourself and when you think about leveling up and when you think about having a goal and having direction and going forward, you're going to have to embrace your inner bravery. You're going to have to do things that you don't necessarily like, but you know are good for you. And look, at the end of the day, do you have to do it? No. You could turn off the movie. You could turn off the game. There are a lot of factors that you cannot control for. But just understand that oftentimes the hard and dreary and tough path has an equally fulfilling reward. In every video game, the harder the boss that you defeat, the sweeter the reward is. I hope there was something worth of value that you heard today. I thank you very much for listening. And always, always remember, there's ways to get better. There's ways to move forward. It's not simple. It's not easy. It's not going to happen by tomorrow. But I promise you, with the right way of thinking, you can really put yourself ahead and do a favor, not just for yourself, but for yourself in the future. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.